One. All right, here we go. Three. Oh, you just did the count, didn't you? It is July 11th, 2018. I'm Micah Sargent, and right now we're going to start by talking about Carrot. And then, there are going to be some other people who join to talk about lots of other stuff because this is the iMore show. Joining me this week is, of course, the one and only Lori Gill. Hello, Lori.
Hello, how are you today?
I am doing peachy keen. Thank you for asking.
Tell me, Micah, what is the weather like in your town?
Oh, I love it. That is quite the segue. We are. I'm so excited.
To enable profanity or turn off biting political commentary. Customize my personality from my settings screen.
She's telling me what to do. Okay, go ahead, Micah. Sorry.
Are we joined by Carrot itself? No. I'm so excited to announce that we are joined by the maker of Carrot. It is Brian Mueller. Hello, Brian.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
We're so excited to have you here. When Lori said that you were going to be on, I was like, oh boy, I'm going to be a little starstruck. I love the whole thing that is Carrot. It's fantastic.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I've had so much fun building the apps over the last few years, and it's crazy just to see how far it's gotten from that first app that was just so simple and basic, and I had no idea how it was going to do.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine. Lori, what were you going to say?
So let's start with an update to Carrot Weather. That was kind of how we got in touch. This is your most current and recent big news. So Carrot Weather just got another big update. So tell us a little bit about that real quick.
Yeah, well, it was a big update for both the fun and more serious professional weather app side of things. On the fun side, there was a big update to the secret locations mini game where you could like hunt down based on different clues that Carrot gives you, these different locations, and they're anywhere from like the pyramids or the Chernobyl nuclear disaster, the wreck of the Titanic out in the Atlantic Ocean. And so I added 10 new ones of those and added hints for all of them so that people can figure out the trickier clues more easily. And so that was the secret locations. And then on the more serious side, there was a big update to the weather maps. Before it was really, really simple, just the radar and a satellite view. And I added, I think it was like 14 different layers. So you can have like lightning strikes and storm fronts and track tropical storms. So it's basically much more of a storm tracker than it ever was before. And it's much more of like a professional radar app now built into the weather app. And those were the two major features that I added in this most recent update.
That's awesome. Especially the layers that you have on the maps. I think that's great. I'm curious. So obviously Carrot has quite the personality. I mean, that is like one of the reasons to download any of the apps. And I love on my Apple Watch being able to look and see some funny little blurb that comes up. And I don't know, maybe this is not something that you revealed before, so obviously, you can let us know. But like, Siri's apparently talking to me now on the Apple Watch. But anyway, do you write all of the copy that goes in? Like, are you technically the personality behind Carrot, or is this, like a group effort? Is this just something that, like I said, that you do on your own? How does Carrot get its or her or their personality?
Yeah, I do all the writing myself. Carrot, I like to say, is based on my mom, my sister, and my wife. We have like a very sarcastic family, and we like to make fun of each other a lot. So that is a big part of Carrot's personality. And like a lot of the stuff that goes into Carrot Weather now is this I can remotely update her dialogue, so I don't have to do an update in order to get the dialogue refresh now. And so I can Kara can comment on like current events and stuff that's going on in like movies and TV shows getting released, or stuff that's going on with politics and the news. So I can comment on that directly. Like Kara said something about the kids escaping from the cave that they were trapped in Thailand yesterday, and today she's talking about what's going on with NATO and the big meetings in Europe. And so it's fun to write all that stuff about current events and work that into it, and makes the app feel much more alive than these canned dialogue that I wrote like, I don't know, like 4 or 5 months ago. Right. So I love being able to do that every single day instead of just sticking a bunch of random dialogue in and then that being it for until the next time I decide to write new dialogue.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Does it seem like you're sending out a tweet every day for Carrot?
That was going to be my question. Fantastic.
That's basically what it is, really. And it's crazy that ever since I started doing these, I call them like live dialogue updates, the amount of people who like share it on Twitter and stuff like that went way, way up. I guess because it's much more relevant to what's going on that day than just some random quote about the weather.
Yeah. So, one of the things that I see companies like Google with the Android platform that they've done a really good job with is being able to, at least with the phones that they, make themselves, the more Android pure phones, they're able to send out an update over the Google Play Store that can fix problems and do all that kind of thing at any time. So these incremental updates that exist. Whereas with Apple, almost all of the products that it creates, almost all of the apps that it creates require a full-on iOS update to be able to make those changes. And so things like clips and Animoji and different things like that, and just emoji in general, they can feel a little stale after a while because you don't get that consistent update.
Right.
So I'm curious, is that what caused you to want to build in this system that lets you sort of create things or rather add things whenever you want versus sort of having to wait for an update? Was it sort of seeing how others did it, or was it just like, you know what, Twitter is awful, and so I'm going to go to this place where people can't directly respond to me, and so I can say things I need to? Like, what was the motivation behind deciding to add in this feature?
Well, I just love doing stuff about current events, and it just seemed like the perfect, like I was thinking of new dialogue that I could add to the app. I do that maybe like once a month or so, and Carrot sort of commenting on current events would slip in there. Like Carrot does a lot of like modified Trump dialogue to sort of make fun of that. And so I just wanted to be able to comment on that like immediately, rather than it being a couple weeks or a couple months old by the point people would actually see it. And so I just had the idea to do these live dialogue updates where I just update this feed online and then it pulls it directly into the app. And yeah, it's been awesome ever since I added that. I love doing it.
You mentioned that the women in your life are sort of an influence on Carrot. Do you talk to them to get some, does your wife, on a Wednesday night make some sort of snarky remark about something she saw in the news, and then the next day Carrot says it? Is that some of your inspiration?
Yeah, and I talk to my sister about that kind of stuff all the time, and we sort of can sometimes work up dialogue in the world, and we're talking about it, and I'm like, oh, Carrot should say something about this, and then we just sort of like trade stuff back and forth a little bit, and then I sort of also use her as my sounding board to make sure I'm not saying something really offensive that she shouldn't say.
That's
because
actually
I don't
something.
get to really beta test the dialogue, the live dialogue. I just send it out, and then everybody can see it. So I use her as my sounding board to make sure I'm not saying something really stupid.
So when that happens, I remember a long time ago when Carrot first came out. She was a fitness trainer, and she would make fat jokes. And I at the time when I first was talking about Carrot, there were people who commented to me that they found her to be offensive, or it. I know it's not a real person. There's no reason to give it a gender. That it was offensive to them, and I'm wondering how do you navigate that? Because sometimes it's going to happen on accident, or for example, you might have you might make a political comment that might lean one way or another, and then you might have some fans of Carrot who are then offended by it. How do you kind of navigate that situation, or do you just ignore it entirely and kind of heads down and hope everything's okay?
Well, I mean, I try to ignore it to an extent, but like with the politics stuff, I did end up adding like a way to turn it off completely, and I added other political settings so you can actually like adjust Carrot to be like conservative or liberal, or I forget what the other ones are. I think there's a libertarian and a communist setting as well. And yeah, so I do adjust the app based on feedback and try to cater to all sides. And I want Carrot to be like snarky and sarcastic and mean to people, but I don't want to make them feel bad, if that makes any sense.
It does, so, like, because I know, like, I get the joke that Carrot is supposed to be a kind of a snarky human hater, right, sort of like Bender, and
yeah.
And so you want her to call us you want it to call us meatbags and things like that, and to kind of take away her mean disposition would just kind of ruin the joke. So I definitely understand that. Yeah.
Yeah, and with the fitness app, a lot of the feedback that I got was that Carrot, by joking about this stuff, was making it funny for them and turning, like, stepping onto the scale into a positive experience. And if they saw that they had gained weight, for example, and they were trying to lose weight, it would make it into more of a positive experience and something that they could not necessarily look forward to happening, but it takes the sting away a little bit. And so it worked really well for a lot of people. But obviously there's some people that won't like that. And you just sort of have to do it in a way that works for the most amount of people, and just accept that some people are going to be offended and not like it.
Yeah. It's not the app for every single person, but certainly, like, if you've got the right sense of humor for it, it makes me want to open up Carrot instead of something else. Like, why would I get my weather from a different app whenever I can see it from this and have a fun little joke every single time? One of the things that is interesting to me is you have a pretty awesome Apple Watch app for Carrot, and I personally think that's not a thing that a lot of people can say and it be true. It's like, I have a pretty great Apple Watch app. I'm curious, how has designing and developing for the Apple Watch been for you? And with the updates that continue to come to watchOS, has that made the experience more positive or made it any easier than it was in the beginning? Just sort of would love to hear your whole thoughts and your take on being on watchOS.
Well, it's funny. I think that watchOS is responsible for making Carrot, the iPhone app and the Watch app, the app that it is today. When Carrot Weather first launched in 2015, I think it was in March, and then the Apple Watch came out a month later. And when I sat down to start working on the Watch app, I didn't really have the room to include like funny dialogue, lots of funny dialogue, and like funny like weather scenes and stuff like that the original design of Carrot Weather had. And so I had to focus much more on making it just a good weather app instead of being like overflowing with personality like the iPhone app had, because it had so much more room. And so I had to work much more on making this like really good weather app instead of all this personality stuff. And as I went along on that, I started to realize I could go back to the iPhone app and add some of those features into it and make the iPhone app into this more professional app. And they sort of fed off of each other, like coming up with all these different ideas to make it a better weather app instead of just being this simple, funny weather app. And that's sort of how it's the redesign that I did last year of the iOS and then the Apple Watch app is having these basically like two different apps. The fun, crazy side that has like the secret locations and the achievements and the augmented reality mode and all the snarky dialogue and stuff that I think is what made Carrot popular in the first place and got a lot of people to download it. But I think the reason that people continue to use it after they might have gotten sick of all the fun stuff and the snarky personality is the professional side of the app where you can basically use it as your main weather app and it's just as good or better than other weather apps. Like there's 5 different personalities in Carrot. Set it to so you can make like Carrot more friendly, or you can set her to overkill, which is like the ridiculous level that has like profanity and stuff like that. But there's one more personality that's the professional personality that turns off all the fun stuff and gets rid of like the secret locations and the snarky dialogue and all that stuff. And it just gives you like summaries of the weather. And it's actually been a very popular part of the app ever since I added that. People can just turn all that stuff off and just use it as this great weather app. And that sort of fueled a lot of the serious additions that I've done to the app over the past year or so. So like the more professional web radar, for example, that allows people to use Carrot now as their weather maps app instead of having to use a more professional weather maps app.
It's an all-in-one app now. And,
right.
And it kind of breaks my heart that some people have to switch off all the personality, but I understand. Meanwhile, mine's cranked up to 11. Absolutely.
So with the more professional weather features in Carrot Weather, it sounds like you got some feedback that people wanted to have a real weather app more than they wanted to have kind of a fun app that gives you the weather but doesn't really do much else. Do you have plans in the future to kind of like go forward with even more detailed and deep features with the weather layers and things, or do you think that you're kind of like at the perfect in between where it has a lot of robust features but it's still also personality heavy?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of stuff that I have on my to-do list to add to the app. It's funny, like every month or so, or every couple months, I get to the point where I'm like, is there really anything left to add to the app at this point? And then I think of like 5 different things. It all sort of started back when I first released the app, and people would suggest like tiny little things like, I want to be able to see the humidity on the main screen of the app. And so I'd be like, yeah, I guess I can figure out a way to add that. And it sort of snowballed from there, like people asking for these different things and me figuring out ways to accommodate it without making the app super complicated or have like a ridiculous level of menus. And it's almost like a puzzle for me that I enjoy solving, is keeping the app super simple and like something that anybody can use and would enjoy using without having to read like a manual about how to use it. But still have all those deep features and all of that detail in the app and relatively easy to access. So that's been really fun for me to go through and figure out ways to do that. Another way that this happened was with the Apple Watch when the complications were released. I guess that was with watchOS 2 at the end of 2015. I was just playing around with the complications, and I realized that I could add a second complication to the watch face that could show different data. And so I added that almost as like a bonus in the first version of the app with complications, where you could have one of the large complications that would show the weather data, and then the small complication as a bonus would show wind data. And because I'm a biker, and it was September at the time, I guess, and it starts to get a little too cold if it's really windy for me to be comfortable biking. And so I liked having that on there. And then when that released, people started asking for like the pressure, the air pressure, and the UV index and the humidity. And that was the point where the watch app started becoming really customizable, and like you could change all of the different data points on the watch face and add all these different complications with all the data that you could possibly think of. And that's sort of gone over to the iPhone app, where you can add, you can customize literally every data point in the iPhone app, and now the Today widget as well. And so that's been another source of making the app like more professional for users.
Yeah. So one of the things that we know will be coming in iOS 12 is Siri suggestions and Siri shortcuts. You added a fun AR mode to Carrot Weather. Have you considered? And like, of course, you know, this may come, it may not come. So everyone out there who's like, "Oh yes, this is the next feature that's coming to Carrot Weather." No, that's not what we're saying. I'm just curious if you've thought at all about how Carrot could be included in Siri shortcuts.
Yeah, I've been giving it a lot of thought, and I'm definitely going to be including Carrot in Siri shortcuts. I've got lots of cool ideas for how it can be used beyond just asking Carrot for the weather, and using the data sources that are available in Carrot instead of the ones that the Apple uses. So it'll be nice to be able to ask, like, when is it going to rain, and instead of Siri using the stock weather app information, you'd actually be able to have Carrot tell you it's going to start raining if it's raining in 45 minutes. So it'll be great to have like that additional level of detail, and being able to show, being able to have Carrot like comment on the weather instead of just having Siri say something about needing an umbrella. Something tame like that.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
love the idea of being able to ask Siri to talk to Carrot. I mean, I know there's no conversation that would happen, but you know, just asking Siri to have Carrot tell me the weather, it's almost like they're having a conversation.
Right. Yeah, and I'm got some ideas for doing some like fun stuff like that.
That'd be great. So maybe Carrot would actually say some snarky remark about Siri not being able to do it herself or something like that. I love it.
The idea of Siri having like a dinner party and is just there sitting down, and everybody's there, everybody's more, you know, more subdued. And then you start to see Siri sweat, and someone's like, "What's going on?" And she's like, "Oh, Carrot just texted me and it's on its way." And then everyone gets uncomfortable because Carrot's going to like bust through the door. And I love it. I love it. It's great. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that, because I can imagine like a bunch of different shortcut workflows where, like, you know, if I had my good morning workflow and it, along with, I don't know, playing a fun song in the morning and, you know, bringing up my shades and turning on the lights, blah, blah, blah. It also is like, "Hey, dummy, go ahead and put on a coat because it's going to be cold as heck." We have to be careful on here, but I'd love that. That'd be great.
And get all the other Carrot apps involved too, so that, you know, Carrot wakes you up in the morning too and says some mean things to you as you get out of bed.
"You haven't been running for 8 hours. You better get going." Yeah, that's exciting. Anything else sort of, I mean, I would imagine, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the AR mode is sort of just like a fun extra that is included in the app. But I'm curious, any of the improvements to AR kit excite you, or have you sort of spinning the wheels on things that you could do to improve on the AR mode for Carrot?
Yeah, I mean, the stuff in ARKit 2.0, I think is what they're calling it, is very exciting. I haven't gotten a chance to play around with it yet, but I'm definitely looking for ways to incorporate that stuff in the AR mode. And you can definitely see at some point in the future there being some kind of AR product that is like always on. And it'd be great to have like Carrot's ocular sensor like sitting in one place on your desk that's always there, and you can just go over and look, and she's displaying the weather. That would be amazing, like 5 years down the road, or however long that's going to take.
Or a shared AR Carrot where your Carrot starts talking to somebody else in the room.
It's like, no, you're supposed to be my friend. Well, and right now, of course, we don't have the glasses yet, but for anybody out there who may have missed the keynote or all of our coverage on it, one of the cool things about this update to ARKit is what you were talking about, where we can actually place objects in physical space and sort of anchor them there. And the way that they described, some of the examples that they gave on stage were like having a wall that becomes like the shared family photo album. And so anyone could go and put up photos on it. And then at any time, someone can walk up with their phone, lift it up, and be able to see that shared family photo album. And maybe it's a corkboard as well, whatever it happens to be. And so it'd be really cool, Carrot's ocular sensor, you can place, like you said, on your desk. And right now we'd have to do it with our phone to be able to see it. But in the future, yeah, if it's just like, well, I've got my glasses on and there's Carrot saying something terrible to me. All right, we're having a great day. I love the idea of that. So that's exciting.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you have any plans? I think so. Tell me if I'm right on this. You have Carrot To Do, which is a task manager, Carrot Alarm, which is an alarm clock, Carrot Fit, which has crazy exercise routines in it, Carrot Hunger, which is a calorie tracker,
yes,
and Carrot Weather. That's a lot, but are there any ideas for yet another productivity or fitness Carrot app that's separate from this? Or in the opposite, have you ever considered putting all of these carrots into one?
You would be able to combine a couple of them into one app, I guess, but in terms of new apps, I definitely like keep a list of like different ideas that I have, and I do have a couple different ideas. Weather's been keeping me so busy lately that I haven't been able to do anything new in a while, or really go back and play around with adding new features to the old ones. But yeah, there are definitely a couple that I'd love to do in the future if I ever get time for it.
Now, that's interesting. Carrot Weather. Why do you think that? I mean, if you have any insight into this, why do you think that is the app that ended up sort of taking off and being the one that everybody, or that a lot of people cling to, or even just like, why is it just the one that you are most interested in? So that's why you choose to update it most regularly. And because you'd think, or at least I would think, that the Carrot Fit, the idea that I think this snarky personality fits really well with fitness if that person is that, certain personality. And so to me, that would be the one that I think would take off and be where the attention would be focused. But instead it's Carrot Weather, which I'm happy about. But do you have any insight into why that ended up being the case?
Well, Fit actually the app that took off and allowed me to quit my full-time job and work on this full-time. And that one did, but I'm guessing that Weather eclipsed that, maybe because everybody uses a weather app. Not everybody necessarily is using a weight tracker or an exercise app or an alarm clock or a to-do list. Is probably just more universal to people, and sort of became so. And I guess people are always checking the weather every day, but just than the other ones, which are I like a to-do list would be more easy to fall off, or a fitness app would be more easy to fall off using, but a weather app you would check every day.
Okay, yeah, that absolutely makes sense. Lori, any other questions that you have?
I have no more questions. I'm just really happy that Carrot keeps on trucking, and I love the new features, and I look forward to all the great things that'll come when iOS 12 comes out, because it sounds like you've got some plans in place. So that's going to be really fun.
I'm really excited about Siri shortcuts with Carrot. It's going to be great. Well, I have one last question for you. Is there any feature, hidden feature, small design detail, any specific thing that you are most proud of or most excited to tell people about, or like sort of bar trick, like, check this out, look what this app can do, and then you just, you hit a series of buttons and then wow, now Carrot has eyes or something? I don't know. Any like one thing that you'd like to mention?
That's a tough one. I mean, I think that the secret locations are my favorite little thing. They sort of started as another like little Easter egg in the app. In the original version of Carrot Weather, you basically would find them just if you happened to go to these different cities, and they ended up becoming really popular, and I added a bunch more of them. And in the redesign that I released last year, I turned it into this actual mini game where you would follow clues and locate them on the map, and it became like its own whole section in the app, whereas before it was just part of the location screen. And that's been the most fun for me to like go through and like add new ones to and improve, because it's basically like this whole mini game inside a weather app. Like, who would ever ask for, or like, no one would ever ask me to add this to a weather app. It's just like some random thing. In the to-do list, one of the things that was really fun to add was this cat that Carrot gives you. It's a virtual pet, and you would like go and feed it and keep it fed and pet it and give it different costumes. And like a ton of people would email me saying that the only reason they kept using the to-do list was to keep their cat alive. And so it actually helped people like stay on top of their tasks and actually keep using the app. And it's like the kind of thing that no one in a million years would ask to be added to a to-do list, but it actually helped people and they loved it. And I love doing that kind of stuff with the Carrot apps. And there's a couple ideas that I have for going further with that in the weather app in the future that hopefully I'll be able to do later this year.
Ooh, wow, there you
Exciting.
go. Yes, I'm certainly looking forward to it. Well, I want to thank you, Brian, so much for joining us. Thank you so much for making Carrot. And yeah, I for one am looking forward to future versions of the app. You listeners, you can check the show notes for a link to Carrot Weather. If you haven't already downloaded it, and if you need a little snark in your life, definitely be sure to check that out. And I think that's going to do it for us.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Let's see if we can get Carrot to say goodbye.
Survey says, I've hijacked your country's solar panels to power my night light.
Carrot.
Man, mine on my watch is saying some things I can't repeat on the show, which is fantastic. All righty.
Thanks,
Bye,
Brian.
everybody.
It was really great. Thank you.
Alrighty, I've hit